Hello, welcome to this talk on disasters avoided, good practice and an emerging model. My name is Ilan, and you will hear later from my colleagues Gareth and Anna. I am so sorry, lo siento mucho, that I could not be with you in person. The conference looks absolutely wonderful. I would learn so much, but unfortunately I was already booked for other travel and another conference when this opportunity arose to be in Colombia. I hope there will be future opportunities. I look forward to working with everyone. I am on email and social media, so please do connect. Y sería posible de escribir en español. I might reply in English, but at least we will be able to communicate across continents, across languages, and across cultures. Thank you so much to the organizers and to all of you for the amazing, amazing work that you are doing, which is to save lives and stop disasters. Fundamentally, to avoid disasters. As per our website, disastersavoided.com, which we will be talking about today, trying to inspire, trying to exchange, and trying to learn so much more from you. Exactly as with this image which I took in Quito about teaching children what they can do for their school and their home in terms of avoiding disasters. This school sits in the shadow of a volcano. The children are always being taught what to do in case of a volcanic eruption. They take that home, they teach their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, and of course, eventually they grow up and teach their kids to make everyone safe. And really to prove the idea, which we've known for a long time, los desastres no son naturales. We do not use the phrase natural disaster. And this book is a wonderful example coming from La Red, which many of you have been involved in, that has really not only taught Latin America, but also taught the world that disasters come from vulnerability. Not from the volcanic eruption, not from the tornado, not from the tsunami, but from us forcing people to live in certain places and in certain ways, which means that they cannot deal with the rain, they cannot deal with the heat or the cold or the snow or the earthquake. This is why we can avoid disasters. This is why we do not use the phrase natural disaster. This is why we need to focus on vulnerabilities in order to help people have opportunities, resources, and political power to help themselves and others stop disasters. It is not just Spanish, it also comes in English. We use hashtags, no natural disasters. Another hashtag is disasters are not natural. And both of these exist in Spanish too. So again, connect on social media, spread the message, explain not only that there is no such thing as a natural disaster, but also why. Why disasters come from us. Why we have over 50 years of science explaining how to avoid disasters, and why so infrequently we do not apply that science, but yet we are starting to do more. And that is the purpose of our work on this project, Disasters Avoided, disastersavoided.com. So Gareth is based in England. I am also based in England. I am at University College London. I am also affiliated with the University of Agder in southern Norway. And Anna is based in the United States. Much of this project, the funding was seeded by NASA, the US Space Agency. We have expanded beyond that, and we are drawing on much expertise, many resources, and many ideas, which we hope to continue, including with you and with many others. We have the website, disastersavoided.com, but we also want evidence. This is where the examples come in, which NASA funded. So we are researching, verifying, documenting, and publicizing examples where disasters did not happen. People knew there could be a problem, and especially dealt with vulnerabilities. Then something came along like a fire, like a flood, like a heat wave, but people had taken action before, and so a disaster did not happen. Here is a map of many of the examples we have, and you note that there is not a lot from South America or Latin America. We need your help. We know how much Colombia has done. We know that many of you are experts and have examples. Please contact us. Please send them to us. Most of our examples are 1 page. I will show some. We do have a few which are 2 pages. We also have peer-reviewed scientific papers. So we are looking at several thousand words. It can be any length you want. We will take 1 page from you. We will take a book from you. Any material you have, any ideas you have to bring Latin America to the world map, we want and we need. But we will also show how wider issues can distract us. We know that we are changing the climate and we are changing the climate rapidly, but climate changes weather. So there is so much that we can and should do to avoid disasters, even as we ruin the environment through climate change. Disasters are not inevitable. We have to deal with the changing environment. We also have to stop changing the environment so much. But nonetheless, let us not let climate change dominate disasters. Let us not be distracted by one single issue. And this is very much the wonder of you bringing together these topics to show how much people who know disasters can offer climate change and contribute to stopping climate change, as well as reducing the impacts, because we are doing so much to the environment and ourselves, which we can stop. One example comes from Colorado. A group called Wildfire Partners works with homeowners to stop their houses burning in a wildfire. There are some very simple measures, some very complicated measures. It can be as simple as moving piles of wood away from the house, and as complicated as changing all the material, the roofs and the walls, to be fire resistant. So in one place in Colorado, several houses took the measures recommended by Wildfire Partners. Several did not. In 2016, a horrible fire went through this area. The houses that had taken measures survived and could be occupied immediately after. The houses that did not take measures burned to the ground. The owners lost everything. Sadly, this photo which I took of one of the houses which survived, since then, the new owners have not maintained the measures. So this house might burn in the next fire. Avoiding disasters is a process which must continue always, every day and every year. But it saves so much money, it saves so much time, it saves so much stress when, not if, a fire goes through. Similarly, a colleague of mine is from Chile, and during these absolutely horrific fires in February 2024, She discovered that one community, Villa Botania, had taken measures to stop a fire disaster, even if a fire might happen. And it succeeded. This community survived when over 100 people were killed and far too much property were lost. As you note, I have been presenting in English. My colleague from Chile is bilingual, so we ensured that she translated this example into Spanish so that everyone who needs to know could understand it. And this is the key about communication. This is why we need you to support us across languages, not just Spanish, but also Portuguese, in order to ensure that we learn from everyone and we do cover the world, ensuring that we communicate to the world. Part of bringing all these ideas together in the one-page summaries, in the website, in presentations, in two-page summaries, in scientific papers, is also a book that I wrote explaining why disasters are not natural, why people make choices to create disasters for others. This book is currently in English only. A German translation is coming out soon. I do not have a Spanish or Portuguese or French translation. So if anyone is interested, if anyone wants to help, please let me know. We need to learn from you, from Colombia, from Latin America. We need to exchange to ensure that together we avoid disasters. And together we change disaster by choice into no disaster by choice. I now hand over to Gareth, who will present more of the theory behind our work, and then Anil will provide more, including from Chile. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Hi, everyone. It's Gareth Byatt here, and it's a pleasure to be able to provide this recording for this conference. My part about the Disasters Avoided initiative is to talk a little bit about how our emerging model has developed and to provide you with some examples of how we are using it. So, as a little bit of background, we started the Disasters Avoided project in September 2022. So about 1 3/4 years ago now. And during the project, our research into examples of disasters avoided has led us to this emerging model, or modelo emergente. And what we are doing is testing this model on an ongoing basis through case studies, through talking with people, and through finding out examples that we think the model does apply to. So with that in mind, here are the main factors of the model. It starts with the right mindset, which is about making sure that we don't wait for things to happen. Linked to that is making sure we have the appropriate, the right investment and funding, and also the right focus on benefits, some of which can be quantified and some of which are what we call qualitative. So they are not always quantifiable. In order to make sure that we use this funding and investment properly, we need good governance. And we need good governance for all sorts of things. It's one of the cornerstones to all the 6 factors. Certainly, it is linked to the 4th point about having good data and making sure that that good data from a variety of sources is done collectively, and it's done with a lot of different groups, and that we hopefully avoid data silos. Linked to that and avoiding silos, it's about making sure we have what we call meaningful inclusion. We involve everyone, essentially. And we involve everyone on decisions that can be quite tough to make as well. And linked to all of those 5 points is about giving ourselves what we call meaningful targets, something that we can strive for. So to describe those points in just a little bit more detail, having the right mindset means that we really want to address the root causes of what can make them happen. And of course, there are many, and it can be complicated. But that's a key point for us to be able to understand, because we want to avoid the disasters from happening. The right investment and funding means making sure that we put together good cases, business cases or investment cases, and that they help us to be able to make sure that we can work out what we need for the right type of resources. The right amount, that's not too much. That's the right amount of resources and sensible type of resources for investment and funding to be able to provide. The governance piece, which I mentioned earlier, is really it's a cornerstone of all of these elements. It covers governance at an economic level, business level, a political level, and a will to protect people, the planet, and to make sure that we can maintain a level of prosperity. We need to make sure that people are accountable as well, and that the right type of agreements are enforced, applied in the right type of way. There's a lot to governance, as I'm sure everyone does appreciate. There's also a lot to making sure that we have the right data. And I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure we avoid data silos. So it's about making sure that data is intelligently used, that it comes from the likes of Earth observations through to people on the ground recording things, and making sure that it is verified, that it is good quality, so that we can act upon it. And we want everyone to act upon it, of course, which is where the meaningful inclusion comes together. And that's about making sure that we do involve everyone. We can make data-informed decisions, risk-informed decisions, and we can have an approach that really does look at the key things that we need to focus on. And that, of course, relates to the meaningful targets, making sure that they are realistic and achievable. We do need to make sure that we have ambition in targets, but we do need to make sure that they're realistic as well. So some of our work is in the communications side of things, and here are just a couple of examples. I appreciate you won't be able to read the information on the screen here, but this is just an example of one of the types of articles that we write. There's another one here, mostly in English at the moment, but we are beginning to also write pieces in Spanish, and we're looking at other languages as well. And then we hope that through this type of communication that we can help to share our findings and those examples with people, and we are always welcoming feedback about these pieces too. Just a quick word on the model and how we are what I will call unpacking it in more levels of detail. I won't go through all of the aspects on this screen here, but we do have more details underneath each of those 6 factors in terms of the right mindset, the right investment and funding, good data and good governance, meaningful inclusion and meaningful targets. We do have more data, we do have more details underneath that. And we would be happy to share those with anyone that is interested. But what I will do now is just spend a few moments talking about some, not all, but some of the case studies that we have been looking at for quite some time now. I've got 3 case studies here as examples. There are more available. Many are on our website. Some are going to be put onto the website shortly. So we have a number that we are developing, finalizing, and they will be added to the website shortly, along with things such as our newsletter that we produce, interviews, papers, the articles that I mentioned as well. So this particular case study example, again, I appreciate that you won't be able to read the details in this particular screen here, but in a document form, they, of course, are readable. This is a 2-pager, and the next slide's just got a couple of key points from this particular case study. And the main thing I just wanted to point out here is that sometimes with our case studies, we structure them in a way that actually goes through the 6 points, which is what this example and the 2 others that I have that they do. We don't always do that, but we do that sometimes. So this example of the flooding in Bangladesh, we talk about how the right mindset, which actually in this case stretches back decades, about avoiding disasters. There was a major cyclone in 1970, so 54 years ago, and there have been large events since, but it really has helped to instill a mindset which has then filtered through, if I could use that term, through to making sure that we do have the right funding and investment in intelligent ways that gets through to the ground level and is used appropriately. And good governance on that, which stems from the national government's plan. As you can see, they have a very long-term plan up to 2100, but it measures at the local level, communities, businesses that are assisting, that have been doing this for quite a long time, that are really making a difference. And they are aided by good data, part of which, an important part of which, is Earth observations, and making sure that we use those kind of things, including the weather alerts, of course, to make sure that people are ready to act. They are ready to act because we have meaningful inclusion, and we have the work of volunteers and people who carry out incredible support to their communities to make sure that the communities can work properly, they do the right type of thing. The image on the bottom right shows people digging trenches in advance of a particular cyclone that could have had a major impact. That particular one didn't, but they had the mindset to be able to prepare for it properly. And in terms of meaningful targets, perhaps the most significant one that I'd like to talk about here is the number of lives that have continued to be protected since some of these major cyclones that have occurred. So that's just a very quick example of one of our cases. Here is another example, which I'll go through quickly as well. But I will just point out on this screen that, again, in this particular case study, we don't do this with all of them, we have applied the 6 factors in the model here. So just looking at them in a little bit more detail, Vietnam, like Bangladesh, is prone to cyclones and intense rainfall, and that has had a major impact down the years, arguably for centuries. But what the country has been doing for a long time is taking that similar type of mindset about how they can address their flood and flooding vulnerabilities and cyclone vulnerabilities to make sure, again, from national government through to local government and other types of organizations, that the right investment and funding is in place. Lots of interconnected aspects on the governance level, and that goes through to the national government, local government, working with agencies and different organizations so that when projects are undertaken, that they are connected to a strategy. They're not standalone. So again, to my point earlier, we don't have silos or a minimal amount of silos. Again, using good data, Earth observations being key to that. And of course, for weather events, they are incredibly valuable as part of this overall approach to avoid the disasters. Likewise with Bangladesh, a lot of organisation and participation at the community level and involvement by them in these projects that are connected together. For example, a UNDP project for resilient coastal homes and also mangrove plantations that involves people in risk assessments, specific risk assessments for what's required in their houses. So another good example of meaningful inclusion and setting the right kind of targets, saving lives and also protecting livelihoods and therefore helping the economic situation also. One more final example, this is a wildfire example, is of the focused and amazing work that's been going on in Australia for a number of years to manage wildfire risk and to avoid disasters from wildfires. Speaking as someone that is an Australian citizen, I do remember the impact of the 2019-2020 bushfires, and there have been some very bad bushfires prior to that also. What the Australian nation, the government, local government and communities, organisations, state governments, lots of different people have been coming together with this mindset of avoiding the disaster. There's been a lot of work done, investment in intelligent ways, into research, into understanding more about the land, appreciating indigenous knowledge in the land as well, making sure that those finances are being used appropriately, both in rural areas and in areas that are urban and close to urban. And that also includes working with the private sector very closely. Governance, again, it really comes out, I think, from what I've just been talking about with all of these different parties involved, the value of making sure that they are all linked up so that they are able to respond proactively when something happens in a coordinated way. And that is something that is practiced very diligently in Australia and continues to have a lot of focus. And I mentioned the value of Indigenous knowledge a few moments ago. That is part of that governance piece and certainly adds a lot of value. Again, you have the point about good data. So understanding the different types of fuel loads in this case, and understanding, of course, weather conditions, Earth observations are crucial to this, making sure that that data is there and it's being used appropriately to also help with investments. Meaningful inclusion, once more, the public being involved in this and businesses and lots of other organizations so that everyone can be working together. People, if they do need to evacuate or move somewhere, it's very clear what to do and it's done early. Again, meaningful targets. Of course, life is the key one here. Protecting the environment, as it was in the other case studies, is key as well. And it's really, again, another example of people working together, coming together to be able to make sure that we can avoid those disasters. So I hope that this has been a useful session for you, and thank you very much for your time.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Ana Prados y yo trabajo en la Universidad de Maryland, Baltimore County, en Estados Unidos. Y también formo parte del equipo de Desastres Evitados o Desastres Evitados. Soy científica y mi especialidad es en la teledetección satelital con un enfoque en los incendios y en la calidad de aire. Y también llevo varios años trabajando con los stakeholders involucrados en la gestión de los incendios, principalmente en Sudamérica y en el sur de Europa. Y mi presentación estará enfocada en los desastres relacionados con los incendios y con la calidad de aire en América Latina. El humo provocado por los incendios en América Latina produce, como en otras partes del mundo, grandes cantidades de contaminación, incluidas las partículas o aerosoles y gases como el dióxido de nitrógeno. Esta contaminación puede tener impactos importantes en la salud, tanto cerca del incendio como lejos del incendio, debido al transporte del humo hasta cientos de kilómetros. Y estos impactos del humo producido por los incendios pueden durar de días a meses. Los niveles de lo que llamamos el PM2.5, que son las partículas o los aerosoles más pequeños, y uno de los contaminantes que supone más riesgo durante los incendios, pueden exceder a veces por mucho los niveles recomendados por la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Y entonces aquí tenemos un ejemplo de uno de los factores de los que ya nos habló Byatt anteriormente, aplicado al tema de los incendios, y es el factor de los buenos datos. Estos datos pueden ser imprescindibles para la toma de decisiones y para evitar el riesgo de los desastres. Y aquí tenemos una imagen que muestra la profundidad óptica de los aerosoles. En este caso provienen de un satélite estadounidense que se llama GOES-16 y nos muestra los aerosoles sobre Bolivia y parte de Chile, Argentina, Brasil y Paraguay. Esta cantidad representa la carga de las partículas en la columna entera de la atmósfera. Y estas partículas que detectan los satélites pueden provenir tanto de fuentes como del humo provocado por los incendios, como también de otras fuentes como puede ser la industria, los vehículos, etc. Y aunque estas imágenes de aerosoles satelitales pueden o no representar la contaminación que está a nivel de tierra, son muy útiles para darnos el contexto de lo que está pasando y sobre todo de las regiones a las que se ha podido esparcir el humo. En este caso, de este tipo de imágenes de profundidad óptica de aerosoles, los colores más cálidos, como el color rojo intenso, representan las concentraciones más elevadas de partículas. Y muestra claramente las partículas o aerosoles que provienen del humo causado por incendios que se originaron en Bolivia, en la parte central, en octubre del año 2023. Y vemos que el humo se esparció a otros países, incluso afectó a partes de Uruguay y Argentina. En Bolivia, tanto como en otros países de Sudamérica, todos los años el humo afecta de manera importante a muchos centros urbanos. Y aquí vemos en la parte superior derecha un ejemplo de la calidad, del índice de calidad de aire en varias ciudades en Bolivia, y que este índice de calidad pésimo fue causado por el humo y sobre todo impactó a la ciudad de Santa Cruz, que es uno de los centros urbanos en Sudamérica más afectados por la contaminación del humo. Y entonces, ¿qué tipo de contaminación miden los satélites? Bueno, ya hemos visto un ejemplo del humo y partículas que pueden provenir de los incendios o de otras fuentes. También los satélites pueden medir el monóxido de carbono, el dióxido de nitrógeno y el dióxido de sulfuro. Y aquí tenemos un ejemplo a la derecha de dióxido de nitrógeno sobre Sudamérica, donde vemos zonas con más contaminación indicadas por los colores más cálidos debido a los incendios en Bolivia y la parte central de Brasil, y también vemos una concentración elevada de dióxido de nitrógeno en centros urbanos y específicamente se ve la contaminación en Sao Paulo, en el este de Brasil. También hay parámetros relacionados con los incendios que se pueden detectar con satélites, como es la ubicación de los incendios, donde están localizados, la intensidad de los incendios y también la extensión del área que se quema después de un incendio. Y entonces a continuación voy a hablar acerca de unos estudios de caso que hemos elaborado dentro del proyecto de Desastres Evitados, enfocados en los incendios en América del Sur. Hemos elaborado un estudio de caso en Chile en colaboración con Jorge Saavedra, que trabaja con el equipo del Departamento de Desarrollo e Investigación en Incendios Forestales dentro de la Corporación Nacional Forestal o la CONAF en Chile, y llevamos trabajando con él desde mayo de 2023. Y para empezar quería compartir un poco acerca del contexto actual de incendios y los desastres de incendios en Chile. El 17% del territorio sufre de riesgo de incendios alto o muy alto. Ha habido un incremento en la vulnerabilidad de las poblaciones debido al aumento en lo que se llama el interfaz entre las zonas urbanas y las zonas forestales o agrícolas, que ha dado lugar a que las poblaciones estén mucho más expuestas a los incendios. Otro factor importante en Chile es que los incendios están exacerbados por un exceso de combustible o cierto tipo de vegetación. Esto tiene varias causas. Una de ellas son las prácticas históricas en Chile y en otros países de la supresión excesiva de los incendios, donde al suprimirse todos los incendios por parte de los medios de bomberos se acumula una cantidad excesiva de vegetación. También hay un exceso de combustible debido al abandono de prácticas tradicionales como el pastoralismo, donde los animales ayudaban a reducir la vegetación. Entonces, este exceso de vegetación, conjuntamente con el incremento en eventos meteorológicos extremos, han contribuido al aumento del número de eventos extremos de incendios. Esta definición de eventos extremos de incendios está basada en las características físicas del incendio y se dan estos eventos cuando exceden ciertos límites de intensidad, de velocidad de propagación del incendio, así como un comportamiento impredecible, difícil de controlar, donde hay interacciones complejas con la atmósfera. Entonces, en los últimos años, la CONAF ha realizado varios análisis de los incendios en Chile que incluyen estimaciones del daño evitado y estudios del comportamiento de los incendios. Y aquí tenemos un análisis del incendio de Santa Ana, fue un incendio muy grande que ocurrió en febrero de 2023 en la zona central de Chile. Se utilizaron datos satelitales para calcular isócronas, que son lo que vemos en la figura del centro, que indican la progresión del incendio y que se calculan uniendo los puntos a los que llegó el incendio al mismo tiempo. A partir de ahí se puede calcular la carrera del incendio, la velocidad de propagación y conjuntamente con la carga o cantidad de vegetación, con estos tres datos se puede determinar la intensidad del fuego. Y la carga o la cantidad de vegetación en esta zona central de Chile se ve en la imagen a la izquierda. Con estos parámetros se puede clasificar los incendios que cumplen la definición de eventos extremos, y esto es lo que se muestra en la tabla a la derecha. El color rojo más oscuro indica los incendios que cumplían esta definición de eventos extremos. Y también podemos ver en la tabla los datos satelitales que se utilizaron en cada análisis de cada incendio. Había varios incendios pequeños dentro del conjunto grande de incendios. Entonces, utilizando estas técnicas, la CONAF ha calculado la propagación del incendio que se evitó y a partir de ahí los daños evitados. Y entonces en esta figura vemos el área que se quemó en rojo, en el mapa a la izquierda, y el área quemada evitada en magenta. Y entonces la superficie en magenta, que es el área evitada, que no se quemó, se cruza con información como la densidad de población, las estructuras críticas que no se quemaron, el valor económico de los terrenos que no se quemaron y también el valor económico de las viviendas y la vegetación. Y a partir de ahí se puede calcular el número de viviendas que se salvaron, que en este caso fueron más de 41.000, y la pérdida económica evitada, que fue de 1.889 millones de dólares. Entre las fuentes satelitales que se utilizaron para analizar este evento se incluyeron los puntos de calor del GOES 16 que ya mencionamos antes, que se pueden utilizar y se utilizaron de hecho para determinar el número de municipios afectados, la intensidad de los incendios, todos ellos utilizados para evaluar la evolución y liberación de energía durante el evento. También se utilizaron operacionalmente estos datos durante los incendios y se hicieron disponibles a través de las plataformas Google Looker Studio y ArcGIS Online, que se muestran respectivamente en las dos gráficas superior e inferior. Y el objetivo de estas plataformas es facilitar el uso de estos datos satelitales para que los usuarios no tengan que hacer análisis propios complejos y que se puedan utilizar de una manera sencilla. También quería comentar otro estudio de caso que hemos desarrollado acerca de los incendios y del cambio climático. Aquí el objetivo era hablar de la gestión de los incendios en un marco más amplio. Analizamos cómo la buena gobernanza de los incendios forestales debe priorizar las actividades que abordan las causas fundamentales de los incendios provocados por el hombre y no solo la supresión o gestión una vez empezado el incendio. Analizamos cómo vincular todos los desastres de incendios forestales con el cambio climático conduce a un enfoque estrecho o ineficaz para la gestión de los riesgos de incendios. Ya vimos en el caso de Chile y también sabemos que se da el mismo caso en otros países, que además del cambio climático hay otros factores importantes, en algunos casos más importantes, que contribuyen al aumento en el riesgo de los incendios y que se deben tomar en cuenta a la hora de gestionar prácticas para evitar los desastres. Y finalmente, estas políticas contra los incendios deberían desarrollarse dentro de un marco que incluye los objetivos de otros temas, como por ejemplo de calidad de aire, objetivos de calidad de aire y también de diversidad ecológica, entre otros. También quisiera mencionar un proyecto asociado en el que estoy trabajando en América del Sur, que está financiado por la NASA, donde estamos identificando las prácticas de gobernanza que facilitan o impiden el uso de las observaciones terrestres para la gestión de incendios. El objetivo es facilitar su mayor uso en la región. Nos gustaría profundizar más en este proyecto, realizar encuestas adicionales con usuarios en Chile, Argentina, Uruguay y en Bolivia principalmente, por lo que les animo a contactar con nosotros si les gustaría colaborar en este proyecto. Realizamos un taller en Bogotá, Colombia, en octubre del 22, donde recopilamos información sobre el uso actual de recursos y herramientas de incendios de la NASA. Este trabajo específicamente fue liderado por Kerin Tabor, que es una colega mía. Y entonces, bueno, para finalizar, les invito a participar en nuestro proyecto. Estamos buscando estudios de caso adicionales en América Latina y oportunidades para probar los factores que hemos identificado en nuestro modelo en otros estudios de caso. Y estos estudios de caso adicionales que nos gustaría trabajar pueden estar relacionados con cualquier tipo de peligro. Por ahora, yo les he presentado hoy el tema de los incendios, pero como ya presentaron mis colegas, también estamos analizando otros tipos de peligros como pueden ser las inundaciones o los deslizamientos de tierra. Y entonces aquí les dejo el contacto de tanto mío como de mis compañeros Byatt y Ilan Kelman para que puedan coordinar con nosotros y contactar con nosotros. Muchas gracias por su atención.